I cannot believe the year has flown by so quickly. It feels like just the other day that I made a bird's eye view video for you, explaining how this module works. Now, we have about a month left of this module, and I assure you that this last month will pass by just as quickly as all the rest. In this last video for organizational communication, COM4809, we will talk about reaching the summit, about the final stretch of the module, completing your portfolio. Now, I know that it seems like a whole mountain of work ahead of you at the moment, and it is, but the way to conquer a mountain is to take things one step at a time. This video will show you the bigger picture, but when you are done here, you should perhaps take on this portfolio task, chapter by chapter. Let's look at how this can be done. Now, throughout the year, I posted a series of videos to take you through the contents of the module as was applicable, or step by step. First, there was a bird's eye view video, which unpacked the procedures of the module and what you could expect. This was followed by a video on assignment 1, a video on the literature review, and then came a video on the methodology of your study. Lastly, a video on the presentation and interpretation of your findings was offered. If you are planning on taking your portfolio on chapter by chapter, I suggest you start your review of chapter 1 off by watching these two videos. Then you read the comments from your supervisor, reread the appropriate sections in Tutorial Letter 101, and only then do you start to make the content changes for this first chapter. Do the same for your literature review chapter, chapter 2, for your methodology chapter, chapter 3, and for your findings chapter, chapter 4. Okay, now back to summiting this mountain. In order to reach the summit, you have to make sure that you have everything that you need for your journey all packed up before you get started. Now, everything that you need before you get started is on My UNISA. Specifically, I suggest that you have a look at the Additional Resources tab. This is where we have posted important and interesting information throughout the year. Here, under the Organizational Communication link, for example, you will see a document that has all of the videos for organizational communication listed, the ones that we just spoke about. Now, here you can see there are hot links directly to these videos. You can also have a look through all of these resources, many of which we will discuss shortly in this video. For now, let's focus on this document here, the marking rubric for assignment 6. When you open the rubric, you will firstly see the mark allocation per chapter. Each chapter has a specific allocation along with a mark for the technical presentation. Now, possible specific penalizations for the module in line with the expectations throughout the year also apply. These are specifically Turnitin and or plagiarism and ethical clearance. I would like us to stand still at Turnitin for a moment. On My UNISA, many students were worried that the Turnitin report for their portfolio will turn up a high similarity index because it will flag their previous assignments, which the portfolio is of course made up of. Now, you don't need to worry about this. Turnitin as a program has the preset of not recognizing your different submissions within the same class or the same module as plagiarism or self-plagiarism. But it does point to a similarity when you copy your work from another class or from another module. For example, if you copy and paste the introduction you used for your COM4807 assignment to your COM4809 assignment, Turnitin will flag the introduction in your report for your COM4809 portfolio, even if you wrote it from scratch for COM4807. However, you can revise and resubmit COM4809 assignments as part of your COM4809 portfolio, and the report will not flag this previous work because it is in the same class or module that this was done. Good. Now, next on the marking rubric is the expectations or criteria per chapter. You will see that these criteria are the same as those in the marking rubrics for each assignment. The criteria for Chapter 1 comes from the marking rubric for Assignment 1, and so on and so forth. You should be familiar with these criteria and should have applied them to your assignments. I do want to draw your attention to one aspect over here, however. The aspects that form part of the questionnaire for your first 2 assignments. Remember this questionnaire? Now, everything in this questionnaire now needs to be rewritten. You will take out this questionnaire completely and rewrite its contents into prose, into cohesive sentences and paragraphs. Talk to your supervisor if you need help in doing this, but it should not be too hard, seeing as you should already have the content correct with the help of your supervisor and after completing the methodology section of your portfolio. All you need to do now is change the technical way in which you present it. Remember also that you will unpack all of these things in the methodology chapter of your portfolio. So in this chapter, you only introduce and tersely discuss these aspects over here. On this point, let's turn back to our presentation and look at the technical aspects of putting your portfolio together. Good, so now when you are sure that you have watched the videos for this module, that you have taken care of your supervisor's content comments, and that you have read through your tutorial letter and the marking rubric we just looked at, you can start putting your portfolio together. So let's start climbing to the summit. Our first step would be to understand what a portfolio is. Now, there are many kinds of assessment portfolios, and if you do a basic search on the internet, for example, many, if not most, of your search results will unpack portfolios of evidence, where students submit evidence of past assessments to cumulatively make up their portfolio. This is not the route that we took in this module. In COM4809, we made use of what some call a summative portfolio, which is characterized by the fact that previous assignments have prepared you for the work that needs to be done in this portfolio, but it doesn't form part of it necessarily. This is to say that you need to rework your assignments and submit them anew as chapters to your portfolio. The previous assignments, as they were, fall away as you need to rework them. You do not need to attach or submit your previous assignments as part of your portfolio. The chapters focus on the same things, sure, but you have to change them based on the input from your supervisors and based on the knowledge that you have acquired throughout the year. Just think of how little you knew about the research process at the beginning of the year when you completed your first assignment in relation to now. Good, now that we know what the format of the portfolio is, there are some non-negotiables that apply to the portfolio. Now, these non-negotiables cannot be changed and they need to be adhered to if you want to be successful in this module. So firstly, you need to remember that this portfolio constitutes your examination for this module. So you need to treat the due date for this portfolio as you would any other examination date. You would not be allowed to write a paper the day after an examination was scheduled to be written, so you should not expect us to accept your portfolio after the due date that has been set for it. To be clear, therefore, if you submit your portfolio after the due date set out in Tutorial Letter 101, it will not be marked, and you will officially be marked as being absent from the examination. In line with this, you should not wait until the last minute to finalize or submit your portfolio online via MyUnisa. Whether it's Murphy's Law or just an overloading of the system, if you wait until the last minute to finalize and submit your portfolio, something could go wrong in the process that will see you miss out on the due date. There is nothing that we as lecturers can do for you if you miss the deadline. A last reminder on this point is that you will not be able to resubmit your portfolio. The one that you submit the first time should be your final, complete copy. Once again, you need to make sure of it, as this will be the one that we mark, no matter what. Secondly, the good thing about your portfolio examination is that you have a chance to revisit and rework what you have already done. You should read through your portfolio numerous times before you submit it, making changes, amending, and improving each time. Do not submit a first draft, as you will come to sorely regret it. Thirdly, although we understand that a lot can go awry in the submission process, you have to understand that the onus is on you to make sure that your portfolio reaches the university on time. You need to make sure of it, and you need to retain proof of having submitted it. Remember also, therefore, to make a copy of the entire portfolio that you can resubmit or produce to your supervisor at a moment's notice. Once again, this is an examination, so there really is no room for error. Good. Now that we know what a portfolio is and we understand all of these non-negotiables, let's look at what the portfolio for this module would look like. As you can see, the portfolio starts with the title page, whereon your topic, your student number, etc. is given. This is followed by your Turnitin report page, as per usual, and your declaration of own work submitted. After your declaration, you have your table of contents. Now please note that you should have only one table of contents for your entire portfolio. You will thus have all of your contents in here. As you can see, you have chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. The names or headings of these chapters should be the same as the corresponding assignment. For example, chapter 3 is called Designing the Research Strategy. Another two things that I want to show you here is that each chapter in the portfolio has its own introduction and conclusion. If you have a look at any academic book or even a master's dissertation or doctoral thesis, you will see that each of the chapters will have its own introduction and conclusion. You should also have an introduction and conclusion for each chapter, which outlines, introduces, and concludes the chapter specifically. Now, if you look under the additional resources again on my UNISA, you will see that I posted an infographic of sorts for you. This infographic is developed by the University of Melbourne. It tells you all about writing an introduction and conclusion. Please have a read through and have a look at that. Okay, now 3 specific things that I want to tell you about your introductions and conclusions for this portfolio is, firstly, that you should always refer to your previous chapter in a next chapter's introduction. For example, see here in the introduction to chapter 3. First, I refer back to the previous chapter and then link what was discussed there to what is to be discussed in this chapter. Just so, in a conclusion, for example, this one, you refer to a next chapter. Now, this is one way for you to link the different chapters together into a whole. Remember, you are busy with one report, not 4 different assignments. All of the chapters should flow together and link up with one single golden thread. The second thing that I want to mention in terms of in your introductions and conclusions is that your introduction to chapter 1 should not just give an introduction to this chapter, but should introduce the study as a whole. This introduction will thus be a little bit longer. So too should your conclusion to chapter 4 be longer, as it will offer a general conclusion to the study as a whole. Now speak to your supervisor if you need any help in this regard. The third and last thing that I want to mention in terms of introductions and conclusions is that there was a question on my UNISA regarding the use of references in your introductions and conclusions. References in introductions and conclusions should preferably be avoided and only included if completely necessary. For example, if you give a definition. For the most part, however, there is no definite rule, and mostly this depends on the preference of the writer or the examiner. Please, therefore, play it safe and avoid references in these sections if you can. The last thing that I want to show you on this mock-up of a portfolio here is that your list of sources consulted should be a consolidated list of all of the sources that you used throughout your portfolio. There should not be a separate list for each chapter. There should be only one list, and it should be in alphabetical order. Now, if you have any trouble with this, please watch this first video under how to reference in the website that we told you about before. If you do not have a link for this website, please email your supervisor or even me, and we will forward it to you. The website also has information on introductions, conclusion, labeling of tables and figures, and the like that you should please familiarize yourself with if you have not done so already. Okay, the last thing in your portfolio should be your addenda. You should have at least 3 addenda, and Tutorial Letter 101 under the heading Portfolio Examination tells you what these 3 addenda should be. Now, while we are on the topic of technical presentation, there's one more thing that I want to show you under the Additional Resources tab on my UNISA. I have made you a checklist for the technical presentation of your portfolio. After you have consulted Tutorial Letter CMN Hone 301 carefully, you can use this checklist to make sure that you have adhered to the most important aspects of technical presentation. You should be able to check every box on this list before you hand in your portfolio. Okay, so now that we know what your portfolio will look like, more or less, let's move on towards the summit by looking at some more nitty-gritty aspects of your portfolio. Firstly, many staff members are going on vacation in December and early January. So contact your project leader now to establish their availability if you have not done so already. We know that you will be doing a lot of work during the late December and early January period, but this is also when the university will be closed and when your lecturers will be on leave. So make sure that you know what your schedule should be in terms of this. You will also see that you are limited in terms of the length of your portfolio. This is a tough aspect for many of you, I know. You have 60 pages in length. Now, this is from the beginning of your chapter 1, from the introduction of your chapter 1 to the conclusion of your chapter 4. It doesn't include your title page, declaration page, your list of sources consulted, and your addenda. So the content part of your chapters should be 60 pages in length. The thing of the matter is that writing succinctly and including only directly relevant, as opposed to only peripherally related information in your portfolio, is one of the competencies that we expect a student at postgraduate level to display. We want to see that you are able to make a distinction between related and relevant information, and we want to see that you can write succinctly on your topic, that by now you know it well enough to actually do so. If you think that it's impossible to write about a whole empirical research study in only 60 pages, consider the fact that all academic articles, which also report on an entire research study, is only about 15 pages in length. It is therefore definitely possible, but you will have to work really hard at it. The next aspect that I want to talk about is planning. Now, there is a month left before the due date for this portfolio. If you want to make sure that you submit a few days before, so as to make sure that no technical glitches or other problems bother you in your submission, you will have to move your own deadline up by a few days. Then you have to account for your submission to turn it in, which also takes a few or a couple of days, assuming that you have to rework parts of your report. Then you have to account for the fact that you will have to read and rework your report to sort out any spelling, grammatical or syntactical errors, which could take a full day or more with a report this size. Now, I'm sure you can see where this is going. Pretty soon, the date by which your portfolio is due will be upon you. Make sure that you start immediately. Start this afternoon already, and don't stop until you have a masterpiece that you can be absolutely proud of. Okay, we all know that the journey that you have taken and that you will still take with your honors degree is very hard. We don't underestimate that. Please take our word for that. Years back, when I was still doing my degree, I came to a winter school that UNISA presented to its postgraduate students, and I remember one of the lecturers saying that there is nothing that they can do to make the road easier for a student. This is unfortunately a truth that I have come to understand. At postgraduate level, a lot is expected of a student. This is, after all, an advanced degree that asks for advanced skills and advanced thinking. At the end of the day, there's nothing to it but to just do it. I implore each one of you to please do your very best. Good luck.